fellas. I'm out here quite smiley because you are looking like quite the snack. Anyway, today's I wanted to speak about Final Fantasy. Now, I am not all too familiar with the series. I've only played Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I've played Final Fantasy 14 and 15, and then naturally 16 here is the next one. I never managed to finish Final Fantasy 14 or 15 because they are quite long. So I've seen a decent amount of people crapping on the combat of the game, and so I wanted to talk about mainly three things that I believe are essential to talk about when talking about this game, which would be the combat, the accessibility, and finally the story. First, I do want to start with the combat. While you're starting out in the game, the combat feels rather simplistic. You know, starting out naturally, you do get like very few abilities, so the combat feels way too simple. But you know, it makes sense. You're just starting out in the game, and so they're trying to teach you the ropes and all that business. So, you know, that's fine. Once you start like getting into like battles in combat, and the more like fights you win, you get points in which you can put into kind of like this skill tree where you can either upgrade your current abilities or unlock new ones. And so that is when combat starts transforming into a whole new type of complex. And the best way I can compare it is to Devil May Cry, which I'm sure is a really good comparison because I believe that it has one of the best combat systems that I've ever been able to experience, because it's smooth, it's fluid, and you can like create your own combos and all that stuff. And so I had that exact same vibe while playing this game. It's kind of like making your own identity. Maybe this ability pairs better with this ability for you, or maybe that ability does things better than the other ability. So you get to form or glue some abilities together to make like an intricate or very complex combo that you yourself have made. And I believe that feeling is absolutely amazing. So when it comes to the combat, I am a big fan of it. The only issue that I did have with the combat itself was that, well, to explain my issues with the combat, I do have to say, I have to go on a small tangent. Whenever I play games in general, I have to turn off both vibrations and the adaptive triggers for the PlayStation. Mainly because intense vibrations and like the excessive use of the triggers do cause my hands to hurt very heavily. That's why I can't play general video games with like extreme vibrations or even like weak vibrations on the controllers. Same with the triggers, you know, forcing your like fingers very hard to pull on the trigger and all that mumbo jumbo. It becomes very difficult for my hands and it hurts, and then I won't be able to I'm not able to play as much. I say all of that to clarify that I started getting that same feeling of my hands and arms hurting from the whole how the combo system is set up to make sword moves and magic moves and weave them in between. And so obviously you require a lot of timing, and you require it requires a lot of precision. And so that type of button pressing does hurt my hands quite a lot. That was the only complaint that I had about the combat, but even then you are able to change some settings to change it from the normal button layout into something else. And so that is what I ended up doing, in which I put like, I think it was button type B or something. It's something like that. You basically attack with R1 and magic with R2. Translated to kind of like the Souls-like mindset, which was a little bit easier for me. And my hands. My hands are fine. When it comes to the combat, I think they did an absolutely cool job. You know, I whenever I do new combo routes for myself, you know, testing things out, I always get this really nice feeling of satisfaction. And I love that. I love that because it allows me to experiment as much as I want, and to create combos that I think look cool and feel cool to do, you know? The combat for me is so good to the point where I can literally go hunt down everything in the area, and it's what I've done. I hunt down every single thing in the area because I want to try out new combos. I want to try out new moves. I want to do more combat related, and it's great. I love it. There's also a few other things that I believe break the flow of the combat and the gameplay, and I believe those are the quick time events. There are these quick time events in which are cinematic evasions and cinematic strikes. And so I believe those break the flow of combat quite a bit, but they end up really looking really cool and all that stuff. And so while that is really nice, it kind of takes you out of it every now and then. But that's not even like that big of a deal. Other than that, those are like my only issues when it comes to combat. Moving on from the combat, there is one thing that I am very surprised about, and that would be the accessibility. There's quite a few things when it comes to accessibility, and I believe it's like what a lot of people have complained about. Those are the rings you can equip. I tried all these rings for myself, and I think they're great. You know, for a lot of people that want to enjoy a very combat focused game but can't for whatever reason, the game is made more accessible for them. And I even rocked one of these rings for quite a while, the Ring of Evasion I think it was called, where they give you quite a large window to like evade more attacks. And since I do not have that big of a reaction time, I thought that was fine. As I continued to play the game more and more, I found that I didn't, like me personally, I didn't need those rings, so I ended up taking them off. However, the fact that the option is there to help other individuals, or just to help anyone in general, I think it's a great thing. If you don't need them, don't wear them. And if you need them and you would like to enjoy the game more in a sense, or in a way where you're not usually able to, it's there for you. And that just generally surprised me. The last thing that I do want to talk about is the story. I'm not going to go into any spoilers, so you don't need to worry about that. This game does not, or I at least believe, does not hold back in a few aspects, like the gore and the plot, if you understand what I'm saying. This game is really horny, man. And there's no getting around it. It's just extremely turned on for no reason. That throws me off quite a bit because I'm not used to that. I don't like that type of thing, so it throws me off. I don't like that type of thing in video games, so it throws me off. The story in the game is quite emotionally distressing. There are many times throughout, like, I haven't even finished the game yet, but there are many times throughout the game where I see like a cutscene and I end up like, what the hell did I just see? And there's a lot of moments like that. I remember playing the demo specifically, and once the demo ends, it ends on such a brutal note that it made me physically sick. Once I finished the demo, I literally got dizzy and wanted to throw up because of several things that happened. It just threw me off so badly. I'm worried to keep to keep going through the story, you know? Other than those aspects, I do believe that the story is, or at least from what I've played, is quite good. Found myself being emotionally invested and caring for the characters, or at least caring enough that I do want to keep playing the game and just see where the story leads. And if, you know, the story dips for whatever reason, I'll keep pushing through because the combat is just that good. There are a few things that threw me off quite a bit. I thought the game, from how it was presented, was going to be open world, right? And I was a little bit worried about that because, you know, a lot of open worlds and all that stuff. But the way they've decided to do it was a little bit different. Again, I'll draw comparisons to Devil May Cry, where it was mission based, and in here, it is kind of similar, where instead of it being fully open world, you have a few zones that are semi-open world. Instead of it being a full open section, it is open sections that are separated, and they do give you a sense of exploration, but not that much to the point where you are overwhelmed. So to summarize the whole point, the game is fun. Yeah, the game is really fun. Story gets you invested. I mean, it wants you to keep going. And that's pretty much all my thoughts when it comes to this game. For the time being, I think it's a really good and an epic and fun game. I know this is not like a formal review or whatever. I am just throwing my thoughts out there and seeing how it sticks, I guess. But I really am enjoying the game. I can see why it's talked about quite a bit. Nom nom nom.